Revenge is a dish best served hot, they say. Others say it's a dish best served cold. Regardless, revenge is a big theme in life and movies, as it is with betrayal, which usually leads up to some kind of revenge. Revenge movies take it a step further and incorporate all kinds of ways that a human being can fuck over someone who wronged him, often leading to very violent yet eye-opening conclusions. Revenge. It's a dish best served raw. Terror on the Prairie is the long-awaited western created by Daily Wire with the highly popular Gina Carano, who was cancelled by mainstream left Hollywood for a couple of posts that pale in severity from some other actors who do have the right political stance. Cough George take I cough Pedro Pascal cough. Gina plays a housewife in the middle of an old West Prairie where she has a small farm with her husband and son. Life is rough. She misses the big city and crops are failing. When her husband goes to town to find work, a bunch of not very kosher-looking people arrive at her farm. A bunch of gritty cowboys on the road for months being nice to a very busty woman who is all by herself in the Wild West. But Gina is no fool. Nope. At least that is until the script tells her to act stupid. Thankfully, the script also tells the bad guys to do stupid stuff. It even tells itself to be stupid. The amount of stupid in this film is incredible. From the shack door that opens from the outside in many shots that suddenly magically can get blocked by some furniture from the inside, whereas all they need to do is open it. Because it opens from the outside where there's nothing blocking it. But no worries. The crook tries to kick it in anyways, so the blockage worked somehow. There's so many moments guns should have been fired that you can make a drinking game from it and get buzzed really quick. I would not have expected this, but Gina Carano, who is definitely not a Mary Sue in this film, has so much plot armor it makes Michael Burnham look like a Hume. Well, never mind that comparison. No one beats Michael Burnham, but still, it's Gina Carano. She's a beast even in the movie. I'd expect at least some kind of Rumbo in the Wild West, but no. She can't even shoot. And then when the man returns, despite being a war hero of sorts, he just does that thing he does and it's laughable. Meanwhile, you're wondering where that one character is that actually acts like he should. Plenty of people in the YouTube sphere were talking about the film before the fact, and don't get me wrong, it's great that they made this. It certainly looks professional. But afterwards it was very silent about it. Few reviews, if any. Visually it's great. As a western it could succeed, but gee whiz, whoever wrote this needs to go back to writing school, cause kids, your script looks like an Emmentaler that has been eaten by mice. It's sad really. Gina and the actors deserved a better script. On to the next film with her. Hopefully it'll be written better. Check that. Blackjack is an Italian/Israeli spaghetti western that's quite brutal for its time and is sometimes referred to as a western horror. It's not though. Something doesn't become a horror when there's blood and torture in some scenes. A bunch of robbers have just finished robbing a bank and are counting up the loot. Geniuses already know greed will get the upper hand and betrayal will set in. And so does our main anti-hero, played by Robert Wood aka Blackjack, as he runs off with the loot and leaves the others trapped in the mine. It doesn't take them long, however, to find him and act revenge on him and his friends, leaving him tortured and hung for dead, raping and killing his sister. And Blackjack wouldn't be a mean mofo without going back at them again for this vile deed. There are no good guys in Blackjack. It's quite frankly a case of the lesser evil, or more so being against those who have acted the most evil. It makes a good question about the nature of revenge, the grayscale in morality, good versus evil, violence and all that stuff. Think about it too much and you'll see a nihilistic movie talking about mankind. I myself just saw a good revenge western, but maybe my emotion chip is acting up. Blackjack is compelling enough to make it worthwhile a watch. It's a bit slow in places, but people who like a little bit of classic gore, including bright red blood, in their westerns should take a look at it. Normal western fans will find enough in it to sit through it without too much trouble. Though again, slow in places, early shot load, not your typical Wild West flick. Check that. Last the Night, also known as Pay Servile, is a film made to show us life during the pandemic, though from a Hollywood lens. Brian Austin Green, whom I am happy to see get work, plays a divorced and burned out teacher who is locked down like everyone else and is forced to teach through webcams. His class is a bunch of typical teens. A diverse bunch but surprisingly anti-mask. I'm not sure if that makes them the good guys or the bad guys according to the writers. This class of 6 people must be the smallest class ever, but our teacher at least has most of their attention. He's one of those gun nuts America First Amendment kinda people, you know, so he's probably the bad guy. During one class he overhears the kids talking about him behind his back. No such thing as privacy apparently on Zoom-like applications, and they pretty much threaten him for drooling a little bit too much over the sexy blonde of the bunch. He's divorced, so he's lonely, sad, troubled, looking for connection. Who's the bad guy here? Anyways, stuff happens, like pretty sudden. Not from 0 to 100, but definitely one of those cars that first pulls up slowly and then gives you all the speed you need. I found it to be reminiscent of Falling Down in a way, just done worse and without the character progression and with some balanced modernity pushed into it. People say this film is about mental health and the hardships of lockdown. And sure, it's a baseline in the story, but come on, a guy like that doesn't go there for only that, and the kids are outside in several scenes having fun. Lockdown my shiny metal ass. Due to this, the movie is like vanilla ice cream that doesn't have enough flavor. It's competent, it's just bland, uncreative and a wee bit pointless. Nice to see Brian Austin Green though. Check that. Rampapatam rampapata Companeros rampapatam rantatam levantado los sombreros. Such you are greeted during the movie with this excellent Ennio Morricone song of the same name as the film. Companeros, a 1970s A-Parta western that can't go wrong with who is at the helm for the score. In the style of the Zabata western we get a money-hungry gringo from Sweden of all places, who is selling guns to the army, an army that is fighting the rebels and are looking for a rebel leader who started a revolt in his town. I'm not gonna explain it completely, but these two characters become unlikely friends and decide to go together into an adventure, both for their own reasons. However, is betrayal in the air or will friendship prevail? Will the Mexican army defeat the rebels? Who will get riches? Who will get the bullet? Companeros is as fun as the song created by Morricone. It's joyful but filled with meaning. It's a sense of joy de vivre that goes through the whole movie, creating a very nice buddy cop type of film. European, fancy, capitalist mercenary versus Mexican peasant, arrogant rebel facing off to cliché copyright Mexican army and its extravagant leaders. Fun stuff. And it hits every beat from the beginning scene to the very last frame. I'd almost say this is a must-see, though with so many good westerns that might be promising you too much. Find out, it's still a great film. Smash that. Alive or preferably dead, also known as Vivio preferablemente morti, or Sundance and the Kid, to cash in on the popularity of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, is a late 60s Italian comedic spaghetti western that, quite frankly, has little or nothing to do with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It tells the story of two estranged brothers, Monty and Ted, who will inherit $300,000 if they manage to live together for 6 months. Easy peasy, you might think, were it not that these brothers not only fight each other all the time but are also pursued by a bunch of hoodlums and robbers. As a spaghetti western, this film has everything you would expect: cowboys, bar and other fights, shootouts, dusty travels, desert, trains, gold, you name it. As a comedy, however, it doesn't have enough laughs or giggles. I personally think they should have just made this a western and drop the comedy, cause the gags don't go anywhere. The main characters do not have the chemistry that, say, Bud Spencer and Terence Hill had, two of my favorites who pretty much define western comedies in my opinion. The comedy is mainly slapstick, though as mentioned before they don't slap hard enough, making this a far cry from being a thigh slapper. The few smiles you do get during the film aren't enough to elevate this straightforward western to something special. As it stands, it's just one of the gazillion mediocre spaghetti western movies that were made back in the day. For better spaghetti western, just go to most movies with Ennio Morricone music in AM. For better comedic western, just go to any of the Terence Hill and Bud Spencer films. Check that. Carter, a man wakes up without a memory of who or where he is. He has a mysterious cross-shaped scar on the back of his neck, a voice in his head, and cops at the door threatening his life and freedom when suddenly shit hits the fan, and that fan starts spinning out of control, going harder and harder, eventually starts to smoke and spirals out of control, much like this movie. Will it explode? Oh, it most definitely will. It will explode feces all over your room, your face, your eyes, your mouth, you nasty. Glad I have special taste buds that aren't affected by that, huh? Carter is a 2022 Chinese action movie that starts off promising but then tapers into an overly long, overcomplicated and overproduced action film that will probably either bore you to death or make you nauseous. The camera drones pan and zoom around, jump cuts during fist and gun fights, jumping from one place to the other. The clock ticks. The action is almost non-stop. I checked the clock to see if the movie was almost done, but no, we still have half to go. There's so much going on in this movie, both action-wise as well as plot-wise, that it's, quite frankly, too much. And again, the endless swooping shots of action would have made me nauseous were it not for my internal gyrators. The often preposterous action sequences that give Bollywood a run for its money are a novel thing at first, but even that is overdone so much you've pretty much had it by the end of the film. I will give a special mention to the barrel-rolling helicopter and everything else that happened around with the same gloriously bad CGI that was in other scenes. Bollywood. John Woo and Michael Bay had a baby. A hyperactive baby on speed. It's too bad the baby ends up dead. Ignore that. Bad analogy. There are many films that do the things better that are portrayed in the film. For the non-stop one-shot action part of it, check out Hardcore Henry instead. For the weird voice in one's head and semi-superpowers, check out Upgrade with Tom Hardy lookalike Logan Marshall Green. And for the rest of the crazy shit, check out Cranked with Jason Statham. This movie has promise, but it does too much and for too long. Less ambitious next time, sweetheart. That way you can have a sequel. Oh, number. Sorry, the movie ends on a major and head-shaking cliffhanger. See you then? Yeah, right. No thanks. Drop that. If You Live, Shoot is yet another of the 55 gazillion Django movies we have. The main character, however, isn't named Django but the stranger, yet he, much like Django, is left for dead in the desert only to survive and act his vengeance on those who left him there. I don't know if Django Kill is another one of those films that was renamed only to get crowds to it, and I didn't care to look it up. Regardless, whether he is called Django or the stranger, it's a straightforward western movie about typical western things. Revenge, gold, and a lot of the typical glorious spaghetti western shooting sound goodness. In Django, a stranger is found crawling out of a mass grave by a bunch of Indians. They nurse him to health and he remembers a robbery on a Wells Fargo wagon claiming plenty of gold. He got caught in the betrayal that occurs after and left for dead. The Indians inform him they smelted his share of the gold into bullets. Bullets he can use to exact his revenge on those that betrayed him. Too bad someone was faster than him. Little does he know that the town that took care of them is more menacing than the guys he was riding with. Like the title suggests, Django shoots his load right at the beginning of the movie, and what you think will be a revenge film turns out to be a film about surviving. It's a novel twist, but what happens in the town isn't as interesting as the possibility they had with the revenge thing. Sure, it's been overdone, but done well, it can't go wrong. Check that. Reveangance is an animated film made by legendary Bill Plympton that people who were born in the 90s probably don't know, since they didn't grow up with the anamorphic and weird animated shorts that played on MTV when there was still music on that channel. In Reveangance you can clearly recognize Plympton's unique style, but there's little to none of the wavy anamorphic morphing he started off with. Reveangance tells the story of a nerdy bounty hunter who, together with his elderly mom, hunts down bad guys. At one point he is asked by the populist senator called Deathface to hunt down a little girl that has been wreaking havoc all around the state. Yes, you heard that correctly. a senator called Deathface. I'm sure you can guess what kind of character that is with a name like that. And so he and a myriad of other bounty hunters are going after the girl who proves to be more of a problem than they expected. Reveangance feels a lot like that other animation film I reviewed in episode 14 of SmashTeeVee called The Haunted World of El Super Beasto. Albeit different in story and style, it has some similar elements. And due to this little fact, I found Reveangance to be bland and unimaginative. Plimpton's style is great and a far cry from all the clean and neat drawings and animation out there, but the story isn't all that great and the execution of said plot doesn't go into the cray-cray stuff I would have expected. Not that I need that in a film, but this combination of crazy style with a fairly grounded plot just didn't do it for me. Sure, there's silly antics and politically incorrect humor. There's very limited and unsexy PG nudity and some cartoonish violence. It just didn't do it for me. Also, combining the words revenge and vengeance and explaining it in the film is just lame in my humble opinion. Kojima didn't explain it with his Metal Gear Solid, I think. So why would you, Bill? Why would you? If you haven't seen The Haunted World of El Super Beasto, be sure to check it out. If you already have, check it out and tell me which of the two was better in your opinion. Check that. Revolver is a mid-aughts film by Guy I Was Married to Madonna Ritchie, where we follow Jason Statham as Jake Green, who just served 7 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Newly released, he goes out to get some good old payback, but not in the Statham way of kicking and punching everyone in the face like he usually does. He is going to do it by removing his enemies from all their hard-earned cash. That was the plan, however, before he keels over and is diagnosed by a terminal disease. Or was he? There's also the appearance of two men, one we know from the mob series Sopranos, the other from that catchy Hey Ya song, who blackmail Green in doing their bidding. Besides playing chess, life is chess. Chess isn't checkers, baby. And checkers is not like counting cards. What? I don't know. Do you? People who know their cinema will quickly see parallels between other movies that are slightly more iconic and classic. I'll be as vague as possible and throw in some confusing bullshit to keep you from knowing whether or not I speak the truth. Much like Ritchie does in this flick, but to me, at different points in time, it felt like this was Ritchie's attempt to be clever. Clever like Fight Club, clever like Memento, clever like The Usual Suspects. All this cleverness, however, brings us a pretty pompous flick that clearly follows the beats he wished he was clever enough to imagine from other movies. The result, a conjoined mess of a film that in the end does something. But what? Who knows? I think I know, but I can't say it here because of those darn spoilers. No one talks about this movie like they did with Usual Suspects or Fight Club, and for a reason. It's a little bit try-hard and it misses the ball just so slightly. And Jason Statham, I prefer him as a face-kicking badass rather than someone who plays chess sped up and with mistakes. Check that. A Man Called Magnum, aka Napoli C. Ribella, is a 1977 Italian poliziesque film about a police commissioner called Dario Mori. He doesn't drive a cool Ferrari and he doesn't have a glorious moustache, but he does have a big gun, a Magnum. As a sort of rebel cop, he investigates a drug ring run by a don. Like in most businesses, greed gets the upper hand and two parties find themselves against each other in a quite violent way. In comes Mori, who will come in to help clean up the city of Naples of this scum. Cops get killed, girls get kidnapped, and worse, drugs galore, and Dario is going to clean it up. What follows is a by-the-book cops and robbers flick with a typically Italian streak. There's sexist stuff in there with a slightly clumsy sidekick who likes to look at the pretty ladies and their behinds, and that just makes this better. The humor given by this comedic character is hit and miss, but it's a welcome addition to give the movie a little nudge. The shooting sounds like a spaghetti western. There are boring car chase scenes and other questionable stuff at the end of it all, though it's just a mediocre film about a cop with a big gun. Dirty Harry and even Sledgehammer did that shtick much better. Check that.